Hello, this is Gretchen Baskerville, and I'm the author of The Life-Saving Divorce. If you think you might need a divorce, but you're worried about the decision because you've been a stay-at-home mom or a homeschool mom, or maybe you've been disabled, or it could be decades since you worked full-time, I've got a great interview for you today. Today, we're talking with Debra Doak, a certified divorce coach and certified divorce financial analyst. She's also a pastoral counselor who truly values marriage. So she sees the issues from both sides. Welcome, Debra, to the Life Saving Divorce. Tell us about yourself.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm thrilled to be here, first of all, because I love your book. What a fabulous resource to have.
Thank you.
Um, yeah. So, tell you about me. I got into this because people need this kind of help. It is such a difficult place to navigate through when your marriage is falling apart and you don't know what to do. And I was in that position. I stayed longer than I should have. I hurt myself and my kids in the process. And then I made my divorce harder and more expensive than it needed to be.
Mm,
So I decided I didn't want others to go through that,
mm.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. Nobody wants to go through that, and they don't want to feel like that they did things wrong in court, that they wasted time, wasted money, all of that. So let's talk about where would you start with them? A lot of these women feel like, their life and sanity is in danger. They
Hmm.
worry they can't support themselves if they leave, not
Right.
really sure they want to go. Where do they start?
Where do you start, right? So most people, when they come to me, are a little bit on the fence still. I
Mm,
know I'm in an untenable situation, but I'm still holding on to that thread of hope. I'm still holding on to that thread of hope that it could work.
yeah.
And that's great. And we know God can change anything. And so there is that little bit of hope. And so I can work with them on boundaries and assertiveness and maybe some of the skills they've never learned. And occasionally, when we show up differently in our marriages, we teach people how to treat us and things change,
Yes,
right?
yes. We do
Or,
need to take those first steps of showing up, finding our voice, trying to
yes,
make an impact.
trying to make an impact, setting a standard of treatment and respect that maybe we haven't set before, and
Mhm.
setting boundaries and consequences and actually being willing to follow through on them this time.
Yes. Now, boundaries and consequences is tough because people tend to think, well, I set a boundary and he crossed it,
Right.
and they don't know what to do next.
Yes. And see, it's not really a boundary if it doesn't keep you safe.
Mm.
Boundaries aren't required, boundaries aren't reliant on someone else's compliance.
Oh,
Boundaries are
good.
actions you take to protect yourself. If I ask you, Gretchen, please don't call me that word anymore, and you
Mm.
continue to do it, I'm not safe.
Right,
What
right.
I protect myself when I say, you said the word, I'm leaving the conversation now. If you decide you can speak to me respectfully, we can continue. But right now we're done.
So it's not enough to set the boundary if you're
Hmm.
not willing to walk out that door
Right.
as a result of the boundary being crossed in order to keep
Exactly.
yourself safe, not to punish them, but to keep
No,
yourself safe.
exactly. I call it wrapping yourself in bubble wrap, right? So, this idea that you still want to hold on to a thread of hope, but you also maybe want to prepare to go, I call this working on parallel paths. So,
Parallel paths.
parallel paths. So, you're still going to work on your marriage. Maybe if you've got infidelity or a porn addiction, we're going to get him the right help. If
Mm,
the two of you are having other issues, maybe you're going to go to a marriage conference or get some counseling, and you're going to continue to do that work.
mm.
But at the same time, and we can do this under the radar, we're going to start taking a few steps toward getting you ready to divorce, getting you confident that you understand the process. that
Mm.
you know about your finances, or at least you know as much as you can, right? That you understand the decisions you're going to have to make, and that you have a plan so that you know when the right time to leave is, because that's important too.
Wow. So it's sort of a fallback position, but you're running them parallel at the
Hmm.
same time, getting ready financially, all the
Yes.
decisions, understanding what divorce means, what you're going to
Yep.
face, I imagine, with attorneys and mediators and things like that. So
Right,
you're
right.
not like a deer in the headlights.
Yeah. What's the difference between dissolution and divorce and legal separation and therapeutic separation? I work with lots of couples on therapeutic separation, right?
Yeah.
But I call all of this, when you're doing parallel paths, what I want you to be doing. I don't know if you can see the graphic behind me.
Okay. I see somebody wearing tennis shoes
Uh-huh.
with
With
three
three
different
arrows,
arrows,
right?
right, left, and
So,
straight ahead.
yeah,
Okay.
so lots of times what we hear people ask is the question, should I stay or should I go?
Hmm.
Well, I maintain there's a really awesome third option, and that's waiting. But
Mm.
what I want my clients to do, what I want all women to do, is wait with intention.
Mm.
I don't want you to sit there and wait because you're uninformed or unempowered or you just don't know. I don't want you to be helpless or hopeless. I want you to be waiting for a reason, and we know
Right. So they're
what that
not
is.
stuck
Yeah,
or helpless or just like a deer in the headlights again. They're
exactly.
waiting with intention. And
Right.
how does a person wait with intention?
Glad you asked. So, when I work with clients in this position, specifically like stay at home moms or under earners, the number
Hmm.
one fear that keeps women stuck is, I'm not going to be able to support myself.
Mm.
That's usually the number one fear.
Yeah.
So we kind of walk through, I call it 4 steps, and they are prepare, plan, prioritize, and position. So
Okay.
plan starts with understanding your money. So much of divorce is about money. And if you don't think you can support yourself, we need to find that out. Because
Mm.
what we need to examine is that a fear or is it a fact? Is
Mm.
it actually rooted in reality? Do you know?
Mm. Or is it just an insecurity? Is it real or is it
Right.
just something you've told yourself? Or in a
Or,
lot of these people's cases, it's what your spouse has told you. You'll never be able
exactly.
to support
Right.
yourself. No one would ever want to hire you. All that
Right.
negative talk. Yeah.
All that negative talk. So, a couple of things. First of all, we look at what the real numbers are,
Mm.
right? To the extent that we can.
And when you say real numbers, what do you mean? The
I
person's own
mean,
financials?
yes. What
Okay.
is your mortgage payment? Or what are the rents in your area? If you were going to go rent a 3 bedroom apartment for you and your kids, what would that cost? Let's
Mm.
estimate utilities. How much
Mm.
is your car insurance? You don't have to even ask your husband. We can figure those things out approximately. You
And
know,
how do you do that? Because some people are afraid to ask
right?
their husband.
We
They
don't need
and we have
to.
men in, by the way, we have men in my group too.
Yeah,
So we'll call that person the spouse
the spouse.
who
Right.
controls the money.
Yeah,
But
we
let's
don't have
say
to
that
ask.
okay.
Call an insurance agent in another
Hmm.
town and say,
Mm.
hey, I have a 2014 Honda Accord LX. What would you
Mm.
charge me to insure it? Well,
Ah,
that would be
oh,
72.94 a month. Thank you.
click.
Click.
Wow. Okay.
All right.
So there's ways of doing this.
Call up Sprint. Hey, if I were to get a phone for myself and my 2 children with unlimited data, how much would that be? $112 a month? Okay, thank you.
Click.
Click. We call around and we get the best information we can.
So we don't necessarily need to know our specifics. We just need to know something comparable that's
Comparable.
and real and realistic.
Realistic, right? If we estimate that your car insurance is 75 and it turns out to be 82 or 69, we're close enough at this point, right?
I see. Okay. So they
We're
don't have to sweat
estimating.
every penny. Okay, great.
Absolutely. And then once you have all that done, we'll look at it, and then we'll do a bunch of other work. Then we'll go consult with attorneys because
Mm,
a big number in most people's cases is spousal support and child support.
got it.
That's your income. When we look at your cash flow or your budget or your financial plan, whatever, if budget makes you feel uneasy because it sounds like diet and you'll never eat a donut, then we can call it financial plan, right?
Got it. Got
Right.
it.
So you can have a donut. We just need a plan for it. Um,
Now, wait, can I stop you for just a second?
Please
So
do.
we're going to take all the expenses, and I imagine also the income that we think our spouse is bringing in. We're going
Yes.
to take that to the attorney. But what if we just don't know?
Yeah.
What are our options there to find out,
Mm,
what kind of income he or
yeah.
she brings in, or
Hmm.
even things like, profit sharing or retirement plans, or, even the way vacation is calculated. Vacation has a
Yep.
financial value. How do we
True.
know how many days of vacation have been, stored up, have been accrued?
Yep. Yep.
What do we do next? Do we
Right.
need to know all of that before we go to an attorney?
You don't. You don't.
Oh, really?
Some
Okay.
of it we will want to know. There are some details um, that you're not going to find out till later.
I
So
see.
let's
Okay.
talk about what we can know, assuming you're in a financial control or abuse situation where your spouse is not giving you access to any accounts. And I
Mm,
see this all the time,
yeah.
right? The
Yeah.
earner gives the non earner an allowance every month for the household, and that's what you get to
Hmm.
buy children's clothes and buy groceries and buy gas for your car, and that's all you get. And the rest of it is behind the wall, and you don't get to see into it. Okay?
Right, right. That represents about half. I just did a survey on this
Mm-hmm.
last a week or two ago, and that represents about half the people in
Yep.
my group. And even if they do have full access to knowing what's in the bank account or what's on the credit cards, they've been told they can't spend more than a certain amount. So
Yes.
they're in a little bit different class. But yeah, about
Yeah.
half don't know.
They don't have any access at all, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Or such minimal access, or
Mm-hmm.
only access to a few accounts, or things like that, not the big
Things like that.
accounts.
Right, right. So, for the purposes of figuring out can I support myself, the first number, the most important number right now is income. What does
Okay.
your spouse earn? So,
Mhm.
how can we figure that out? Well, if they have a home office, when they're gone, go in there and look around. Is
Okay.
there a pay stub? Is there a W 2? Can you look at the tax return from last year?
Hmm.
Poke around.
Got it. And
Is
because you're
something,
married, let me ask you, so people get
yeah.
nervous poking around, right?
Mm.
Because that spouse may have said, "Hey, this is mine. Stay out of it."
Mm, yes.
But legally, are you able to open bank statements and credit card statements and paycheck stubs and things like that?
So I'm not an attorney. So I please do not take this as legal advice. But my understanding is if it is not opened and it is addressed to someone else, then no.
Okay.
If it is open and laying on a desk in your marital home,
Mm-hmm.
then you can look at it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Got it.
Okay. So
Thank you.
I think there is a boundary, but if it is in your family home, in the office, in the tax file, that doesn't
Mm-hmm.
belong to your husband,
Right. Because
right?
the taxes are joint. You both are, in
Hmm.
most cases, are
Yeah.
you're both signing them, or
Yes. If it
or
is a joint tax return, correct.
you're
So,
entitled to know what's in the tax return. You're entitled to know
mhm,
what documentation backs up
right.
that tax return.
As
Okay.
a matter of fact, that is a really good point, given that it's tax season right now, depending on when you're going to post this.
Uh-huh.
You don't have to sign a tax return if you don't understand it and you haven't seen it.
Oh, this is so important. So you do not need to sign the return
Hmm.
if you've never seen it,
Hmm.
if you don't understand it, or even
Hmm.
seen the documentation behind it.
Right.
Wow, this is powerful. So what would you do then? And what kind of conversation would you have with your spouse about
Right.
that?
So here's an opportunity for boundaries, right?
Okay.
Right?
Right.
So he brings it to
Boundaries.
you. He only brings you the signature page and says, sign this, it's our taxes. And you could say, in the past I've done that, but this year I'm really feeling the need to understand a little bit more. So I think before I sign it, what I would love is for us to sit down. Let's pick a night, sometime later this week. And I'd like to go through the whole form and understand it a little bit better before I sign it.
Wow. Wow. I want to understand every bit of it before I sign it.
Right. We
So,
say it in a kind
mhm.
and respectful manner. We don't say, I'm not signing it till you show me all the stuff.
Right. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
This
Well,
year
how
I'm
stupid do you think I am?
right, right. This year I'm feeling a need to understand it more, you
Yeah. I
know?
love how you said that.
And if he says, I'm not showing it to you, you say, I understand we haven't done it this way before, but I'm just really feeling that need.
Yeah.
And if he storms off, you're allowed to set that boundary.
And do you need to tell anyone that you're not going to sign that? Or what happens if he forges your signature?
So that's a really good point. So if he says, well, I'm going to submit it anyway, I would send him an email. Email is the best thing for court admissible documentation, not a text.
Okay.
So if he makes a threat, I would send him an email, maybe copy someone else if you want to, or blind copy them, and say, just to follow up on our conversation last night, I ask you to please show me the tax return before I would be willing to sign it. That request still stands.
Oh, nicely said. So
Okay?
very non-emotional,
No,
just factual.
just factual. None of this, and that's what I say when we're working on parallel paths, we can. Martin Luther King Jr. did a speech one time, and he talked about being a thermostat, not a thermometer. So, working on you setting the temperature of the conversation,
Mm.
not just reacting to the temperature.
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
Not just speaking on his level, but actually trying to set the temperature. And this is really important if you're going to start going through divorce.
Hmm.
You have the opportunity to de-escalate the process a lot.
Yeah.
So speaking in this manner, but also holding your boundary firm and documenting it,
Yeah,
right?
you're de-escalating. You know what your hot buttons are, but you choose to deactivate them for this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Put on, what was the term you use? What do you put on to protect yourself?
Oh, your armor, your
Your
bulletproof
armor,
vest. Yeah,
your Kevlar
right,
vest,
right.
and you
I'm
just
not
get emotionally
attacking. Yeah,
right.
I'm not attacking. I'm not sending the SWAT team in. I'm standing rooted right where I am, knowing what I deserve. But
Mhm.
at this point, when he makes that threat, I have put on my best.
Okay, okay.
All
So
right.
you not only want to see it, um, you want to really understand it, and you
Mm-hmm.
probably need to memorize some of the numbers you're going to see on that. That may be the last time you see that tax form for a while.
For a
What about
while.
asking? What about asking for a copy of it, or
Mm,
maybe a, asking for a copy and then asking for a day to review it?
that would
Um,
be a great idea too.
that way, because we don't always remember, well,
Mm-hmm.
what did our investments bring in that year,
Yep.
last year? What did my husband or wife make
Mhm.
last year? What did were there, you
Rental
know,
properties. Did we have rental property income, right?
right.
Or did
Mm,
I see a big sale of stock and I don't know where that money went?
mm-hmm.
Did I see a withdrawal from the 401k account? I don't know where that money went.
Right, right.
So, you might want to get a copy if you can. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a great idea. So you're having this conversation. This year, I'm feeling the need to understand it. And if he agrees, you say, great, could you bring it to me
Mm-hmm.
and give me a day or so to digest it? And
Right.
meanwhile, you either take it to the copier or you get out your phone and you use
Mm-hmm.
one of the scanning apps. I use one called Cam Scanner.
Mm-hmm.
It lets you take a photo and it turns it into a PDF.
Nice.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
like Secret Spy.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got it. And that way, if there are things on there you don't understand,
Mm-hmm.
knowledge is the antidote to fear. We
Knowledge
can,
is the antidote to fear.
right?
Okay,
We can go find out what those mean, but you've got it.
got it.
Now, let's say he tells you to go jump off a bridge. You're going to send that email so that you have said you do not have my permission to submit these taxes, and or it's not tax time. Okay? This
Hmm.
is happening. Somebody's going to watch this 6 months from now, and the taxes are already submitted. If they're joint taxes, you have a legal right to have a copy. So
Mm,
you can call the accountant and say, Jim, this is Gretchen. I would like a copy of my tax returns for the last 3 years.
awesome. I bet most
There.
people didn't know that.
You can also get a copy from the IRS. They are your
Okay.
taxes. Now, it takes a while. You have to fill out a form. So you go to irs.gov, there's a form you download. It'll take a little bit of time, but they're
Hmm.
your taxes. You're entitled to have a copy of your return.
So if Jim, the tax preparer, is your spouse's best bud, and you
Mm-hmm.
know that if you ask for the taxes, he's going to say something to your
Yep.
spouse,
Yep.
going straight to the IRS might be the better option.
Might be the better option. And
Okay.
that brings up a good point. And I haven't actually followed this one through. So this is a something to think about idea. Or I should say I haven't had a client have to do this yet. But part of step one, which is preparing and getting these numbers, is also doing some safety planning.
Mm,
Okay. So we want to take some steps also to start making sure you're safe. And one of those can be as you're doing things like, I'm going to have you set up a bank account in your own name where we can
mm,
stash money. I'm going to
okay.
have you get a credit card in your name only if you don't have one, so that
Okay.
if you don't have enough emergency cash, we can put an attorney retainer, or you can buy groceries and gas on a credit card until we get you some money.
Got it.
I also want you to, when you set those up or for any other purpose, forward your mail to a friend or get a P.O. box. So
Mm,
when you're requesting these copies from the IRS, have them sent to your
that
forwarding
PO box,
address
that
or that
forwarding
P.O.
address.
box. Yes,
Yeah.
to your friend's house or your P.O.
So they don't
box.
just show up
And your
to the door
husband
and he
opens them.
starts, yeah, and he starts saying, whoa, whoa, what's going on here? Because
Right.
you want to keep your parallel plan, from what I'm hearing you say,
On
you
the
want to keep
down
your
low.
on the down low.
Yes,
Right.
ma'am.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Because it's a joint return. So that
Right.
copy is going to come addressed to Mr. and Mrs. Jim
Got
and
it.
Susan.
Got
So
it.
he can open
Okay.
it. All right.
Okay. Okay.
Or
Okay.
if we're talking about a really controlling spouse, they grab the mail and open it anyway. You're not allowed to,
Yeah.
right?
Yes. So true. In some of these cases, that's absolutely true. Let
Yeah.
me jump in here now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in a community property state,
Yes.
California.
Mm-hmm.
So if I open a bank account or a credit
Uh-huh.
card, isn't it automatically community property, or yeah, how does that work?
Well, it is. And I'm not saying you're trying to hide this money. What I'm saying is the day you file for divorce,
Hmm.
he will, it is very possible your spouse will start to employ a technique we call spousal starvation. So
Mm,
he is now going to reroute his paycheck to an account you don't have access to
got it.
in an attempt to get you to cave
Got
and to
it.
punish you. So now you have babies
Hmm.
and you have no money for groceries, no money for gas. He cuts off your cell phone. He stops paying your car insurance. Now, what do you do? So
Right.
I'm not saying you're going to lie about having this money. I would never encourage anyone to hide anything.
Hmm.
You need to be ethical. If a judge finds out you hid anything or lie, you will never be taken as a credible person in your divorce. So everything's on the up and up. I just don't want him to be able to take that money from you.
So you take out the $10,000, but you're
Mm-hmm.
up front. I took it. Who do you need to be upfront to, by the way? To your attorney, to your
Yep.
spouse,
Your attorney, right?
your
While we're
attorney.
doing things on the down low, I want you to be funding this account with, if you take $10,000 out of your account, your spouse is going to know that and they're going to know
Right.
something's up.
Right. So
I
maybe
want
that's at
you
the
to be,
end. just
Yeah,
before you go.
right.
Okay.
I want you to be, if you have household money left over, stash that.
Hmm.
Get an extra 20 or $50 back on your debit card when you go to the grocery store. Sell your kids' clothes at the consignment shop. Find things in the garage you can sell on eBay.
Hmm.
Do all the things. Work a little side gig that he doesn't know while he's at work,
Got it.
right?
Got it. There's nothing strange about this. Our grandmothers had a little canister in
Pin
their
money.
kitchen, and it was pin money or it was
Mm-hmm.
mad money.
Mm-hmm.
If they were going to go out on a date with a guy and he treated them like a jerk, that mad money was so they could call a taxi and get
Right.
home, and they weren't dependent on him. So
Yes.
from time immemorial, women have been
Mm-hmm.
needing to stash away a little money for their own safety.
Right. So there's a new company out there called Elvest. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but is a
L vest.
ELLE. It
ELL?
Yes. So it is an investment company run by women for women.
Mm,
It started. The CEO is named Sally, and she was a big deal on Wall Street at, I believe it was Merrill Lynch. Okay, and they are all about right now women having and I won't say the real word, but an effort fund. And that is so that you have enough money if you have a boyfriend, you can leave. If your job is abusive, you can leave. They
mm.
want you to have enough money set aside, even if things are going well right now, that you always have options. They're encouraging women to have enough money set aside so that you always are in control of
So
your
you're
own money.
never trapped. You're in
Yes,
control. You're never trapped. You've
you're
got
never
that
trapped.
money set
Hmm.
aside for that contingency. Got it.
Exactly. So
Okay.
that is part of the prepare process is this safety. Okay. I want you to have your own checking account. And I also want you to have a credit card because if all you're doing is getting a little bit of cash back, doing a little side gig, selling a few extra, golf clubs or softball gloves from the garage, you might get $2,500, a few $1,000s in there. You're going to need more than that to hire an attorney if you
Mm-hmm.
get, you know, if this needs to happen sooner,
Mm-hmm.
right? So let's have a
Right.
credit card just in case, or if you need to go rent a place because things have gotten really bad and you need to get out, let's make sure you have access to, unless you have rich relatives, in which case, bless you. I did. I was able to leave and live with my brother for 2 years.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
great. Bless him.
Bless him. I don't know what I
Great
would have
brother.
done without it,
Yeah.
right? But not everybody has that.
Now, does it matter where you get your credit card from? I assume you don't go right back to the same bank you've been banking at,
I say
because
the same thing about your bank account. I want you to go to a different bank than you
a
have your
different bank. Okay.
joint account at. And because of this, many of these emotional abusive, I say men, spouses, are charming,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely charming. And especially if you live in a small town, they know the tellers. You go to church together, your kids go to school together. Really easy to walk in and go, "Hey, Jenny,
Uh-huh.
Becky asked me to stop by and get some statements for the last couple months for her. Do you mind
Right.
if I print them out?"
Right. Exactly.
And even legally, your spouse is not allowed to have access to an account that their name isn't on.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're a good guy. I go to church with you, and our kids play t-ball together. Of course, I'll print those out for you.
Ex- and I hear this story. If people I
Hmm.
interviewed had this kind of story. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It
Yep.
and it's amazing how often. So, okay, you don't
Yeah.
go to the
Okay.
same bank. You don't get your
Yep.
credit card from the same bank. You
No,
go
none of those
elsewhere.
things. Right. So that's
Okay.
all the safety. So that's preparing. We're
Okay.
going
Okay.
to,
One more question about the credit
yeah.
card. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, if you don't have any credit because you haven't worked in decades,
Yep.
how are you going to get a credit card?
So the best way to do it then, well, there are two ways. One, you can get a secured credit card. If you've gotten some money stashed away in your checking account, you can start with a secured checking account or a secured card. If you have $1,000, that bank or credit union will likely give you a credit card with $1,000 limit.
Okay. All right.
Okay? And you can start charge $20, pay $20. Charge $20, pay $20, start building up your credit.
Okay, that's what
Okay.
seeing a pattern of payment on time
On
is
time.
what develops your credit rating, your own
Yep.
personal credit rating. That's
Right.
great. Okay.
The other thing that will work is if you have a family member who is supportive of you, which unfortunately in the religious community isn't always true, but if you have a
Right.
parent or a sibling, ask them to add you to their card as an authorized user.
Hmm.
You
That's
don't have to
how does
use
that
the
work?
card. It will build your credit. It will show up on
Really?
your credit. Now you have to trust them with your life because their
Right.
spending and their payment is going to now show up on your credit file,
Okay. So
but
this
you will build credit based on their activity.
so you don't do this with your irresponsible relative. You do this with someone who's just reliable, dependable, and always pays their bills on time.
Right. Check their credit rating first. If they don't have 750 or above, that's a no. Okay.
750 or above. Okay.
Right. Right. Yeah. All right.
All right.
So we've done some of this work, and I want to make sure we get through a few other things. Um, we've done this work. Now you've been to the attorney. Now you've got some income idea. Again, we don't have to have everything, but I do need to know if your spouse makes $60,000 a year or 300,000. I
Hmm.
don't need to know if he makes 62,300. I need to know it's around 60. And
Hmm.
don't need to know what it is at 300, but I need to know it's 300, 350, somewhere in there.
Okay. So
Now,
ballpark. Good
ballpark
ballpark.
it. A good ballpark. That's all we're looking for. Once you have that, at least, you can go to an attorney and they can help you understand what a spousal support or child support award might be. Then you can plug those in your budget worksheet and get an idea. Now you have all your expenses and you know it's going to cost you $3,800 a month to cover your expenses. Now you've got the numbers from the attorney and you can figure out, does the math work or not?
Mm.
So I had a client in San Francisco, which is an incredibly expensive place to live. And she said, I'm stuck. I will never be able to leave because I can't afford this house. I can't afford an apartment. I'm stuck forever. And I
Mm.
said, okay, I hear you. I wonder if that's true. We went through the whole exercise, and what we found out was it was negative $1,000 a month at the bottom when we got all the numbers done. So she was short. But then we reframe it because we're waiting with intention. So I said, you know what that means? That means if you can earn $250 a week, you're free. He
Mm.
said, are you kidding
Wow.
me? I can do that. So we can hit a target if we know what we're aiming at.
Okay.
But if you don't know
Okay.
what you're aiming at, then I can't help you plan how to get there. But I can
Okay.
help
So
that.
the attorney needs to tell us if there's any spousal or any child support coming in. You've already
Correct.
calculated up all your expenses, so it's
Yep.
simple math. This minus this equals
Right.
this, and
Right.
whatever that bottom number is, if it's only
Mm-hmm.
$1,000, all you need to do is come up with that 250. And that's brilliant. And
It's,
I
yeah.
think a lot of people think
Right.
I could do 250,
Yeah.
maybe even a
Right.
little higher. So,
Yeah, we have
okay,
to know
then
what the
what?
target is. And so I want to start just simple there. We don't have to know at this point, unless it's really complicated, but we can simplify it a little bit here. We don't have to know what are the stock options or RSUs or what's in the 401k or how much is the rental income quite yet. If we can start there and those numbers look okay or attainable, what that does is,
Yeah, relief.
okay, now there's more to find out. I'm not saying there isn't a whole bunch more to do in the divorce process, and I hold their hands through every step of that, and we make sure they have a great team. But what that lets them do is the anxiety level goes down by 87.2%, right? They can sleep at night. They can breathe.
Mhm.
They feel like they have options. They don't feel hopeless and helpless. So
And they can hold their boundaries, they can present their boundaries, walk
right,
out the door,
right. And
protect
well,
themselves and feel more
exactly.
comfortable and confident about doing that. Okay.
Exactly. And I'll give my website at the end, but one of the things I'm going to talk about is I have a little pack for $30 of all the spreadsheets that you need to do this part
Mm. Nice,
with
nice.
all
And
the instructions.
so for people who don't know how to use a spreadsheet, is there also like a PDF version
Yep,
that they can just print out? Oh, great.
exactly.
Super.
There's both. So there's
Wonderful.
a budget worksheet in Excel, or there's a PDF you can print out and use your pencil. And I tell people, even if calculators make your palms sweat, you can do this.
Great. And you have
Okay?
to just start with the big numbers you do know. I mean, a lot of people know what their mortgage or rent is. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of people know how much they spend on groceries every week. A
Right.
lot of people do know some real
Mm-hmm.
basic things. So
Right. The other
it's
thing
easy
you
to,
can do is if you have safe friends,
mm,
ask your friends. If your friend lives in a house, about the same square footage as yours, and she does have access to her bills, ask her,
hmm.
what's your electric bill? What's your gas
Oh,
bill?
great.
Right?
Oh, that's excellent.
What do you pay to get your lawn care or your
Wonderful.
pool taken care of? Ask your
Right.
friend.
Right.
Okay?
Yep.
So we eat our elephant one bite at a time.
I
Okay?
love this. I love this. Eating
Yeah.
the elephants.
Yeah, we're eating elephants.
Then
So,
what?
yeah. So that's the exhale. Now we can move on to other things, right? So that's the prepare. Now we're going to plan. Plan is, okay, what's going to need to change? We're going to start thinking about, okay, so that's the $250 a week we were talking about. All right, maybe it's more than that. Maybe you're going to have to make $35,000 a year.
Mm,
Okay, all right. Again, if I know what the target is, I can make a plan to hit it. And waiting with intention, or this idea of creating an exit strategy, it might not be 6 months, it might be 3 years. If you
hmm.
have a 2 year old, maybe what we're doing is working on a plan for when the baby goes to kindergarten.
Right. When he's in school
Right.
most of the day or part of the day. Yeah. So you
Yeah.
can work.
Right. So we're figuring out maybe you need to make $35,000. Great. Let's explore. What are you good at? Let's do some assessments. Let's think about what you're passionate about. Maybe you could go to school, take a certification course, do something and get accredited, do what you need to do, let your spouse pay for it, figure out a way, right? And so we're waiting again with intention so that by the time the baby goes, you have what you need. You'll earn 35, maybe you'll earn 70, who knows?
Yeah.
You're
Now,
probably more of
so
a
people,
rock star than you're giving yourself credit for. I will tell you
yeah,
that.
with the training, you could be. And I know that there's going to be people who'll push back on this and say, how could I get him to pay for my training? Well, many people entered marriage saying, okay, I'll put you through school first, and then you
Mm-hmm.
put me through school, or
Right.
something
Mm-hmm.
like that.
Uh-huh.
Well, you go to school on using the family resources the same
Right.
way they
Mm-hmm.
went through school,
Right.
and that's fair. That's
Mm-hmm.
not being sneaky or
Well,
or
here's
um,
here's the other thing.
deceptive.
Get a student loan. If you get a
Ah,
student loan while you're married and you use part of those funds, not just for your education, but for marital things like
mm,
groceries for the family or paying a utility bill. Again, I want you to talk to your attorney during the consult about this, but then that becomes a marital debt. So he at least
mm.
gets half of it in the divorce.
Okay, okay, that's
Okay?
really good. So as long as you use some of that money for, basic life necessities,
Uh huh.
car insurance, car
Right.
payment,
Yeah.
food,
Mm hmm.
rent or mortgage. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, that's really good to know.
Yeah. So if he won't pay, get a student loan. Again, we're teaching people how to treat us, right?
Right,
I really want to do this because when the kids go to school, I'm going to want to do something. And
right.
so I'm sorry you won't support me, but I hope you understand that that isn't going to stop me.
Wow. And that's finding your voice for sure. That
Yes.
this is important to me.
It's important to me, and I'm sorry you won't support me,
Mm. So you go out and get your
but
own
I'm
loan.
I'm going to do it anyway.
Okay.
So you fill out the FAFSA form. First, you go look for grants and scholarships everywhere you can, and then you fill out the FAFSA form and you get a student loan.
Mm.
Okay, and then you talk to your attorney about what do I need to do So at least half of this is a marital debt when I get divorced.
Wow. And so how far in advance are you talking to this attorney?
I want you to consult with an attorney or two as soon as you get these initial numbers together. Because
Okay.
again, I want you to be able to, okay, I need to know how short, what's my gap? Is it
Hmm.
$250 a week, or am I going to have to earn $50,000
So
to
we're
make
talking
this
to
work?
these two attorneys first to kind of understand their personality, see if we even like them, but also just
Hmm.
to get some real objective facts. How much, based
Yeah.
on my spouse's income, how
Hmm.
much child support am I going to get? How much spousal or alimony am I going to
Right.
get?
Yeah.
Okay,
Child support and spousal support right now. Right.
right now.
Because
Yeah.
if you're working on an exit strategy that might be 6 months or 2 years, we're not worried about who we're hiring yet.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. So there's a whole process I would have you go through once it's time to really think about who you're hiring.
Hmm.
But at this point, and hopefully in your area, you can find somebody that does free consults. And
Okay.
I want you to talk to at least two, preferably
Okay.
three,
Okay.
because there are three kinds of attorneys out there. There are attorneys that want to go to trial. Those are your sharks and your
Hmm.
bulldogs. And
Hmm.
so sometimes they will tell you a big high number and get you all excited about it so that you want to fight for that.
Hmm.
Right? So this attorney is going to tell you, no problem, we'll get you $5,000 a month. And you're excited. And then you will go to another attorney who either is new or kind of has a negative view, and they'll tell you, I think we'd be lucky to get 1,500. And
Hmm.
then you're going to find somebody in the middle who's very collaborative and is a realist and says, I think we're going to be in the neighborhood of 2,800 to 3,000.
Okay.
Okay. So I want you to go with the middle number.
Okay. All
I
right.
don't
That's why
want
you're
you to
looking at
go,
three attorneys.
yeah.
Make sure you're not getting the unrealistic guy or the neophyte who doesn't really know what they're doing.
I want you to think about this as if you were hiring a contractor to remodel your kitchen. What would you do? You
Right.
would get several estimates. If one person told you 80,000, and one person told you 15,000, and one person told you 45, who would you hire?
Right. Okay. Okay. So now where do we go from here?
All right, so from here, as we're moving toward, we think things are getting closer, we're going to start thinking about prioritizing. What is important to me? Is it keeping kids in the same school district?
Mm,
Is it getting retirement assets, or is it getting cash, right?
mm, hmm.
I'm 59. If I'm going through a divorce right now, retirement assets are important to me, you know?
Absolutely.
If,
Retirement is
if
right
I'm
around the corner.
right, but if I'm 32, I have the opportunity to rebuild that, and or I may get remarried,
Right. Right.
right? So I need cash. I have babies. I'm not going to be able to work maybe as much.
So if
So
you're
maybe,
young, you want cash. If you're older, you want retirement. I mean,
right,
sort of as a rule of thumb, not,
sort
you
of
know,
as a rule of thumb, but or maybe it's important to you to stay in the same school district. You know,
which means
it,
staying in the neighborhood, which might mean a little,
expensive.
expensive.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Is it more important to you to I don't know. There's all kinds of things, but I want you to think through. And I'll send you back to the blog post on my website that's stay at home moms and you don't think you can afford to divorce. So
Great.
it goes through all of that. I can always have it on the top of my mind, but I want you to start prioritizing those things. And I'm going to challenge you about keeping the house because I want you to be making strategic financial decisions as we start to think about that and not emotional decisions.
And what you just said is so big because our home is emotional to us for many of us.
Mhm.
It's our nest, it's our safe nest, it's where we brought up
Yes,
our kids. So
yes.
how do we need to look at our home so that we don't get overly fixated on something that may
Mm.
give us one thing we want, but not give us, the retirement or the cash we really need to keep going?
Hmm. And that's why I want you to look holistically at the whole picture.
Mm,
especially as we get closer to looking at settlement agreement options. It's important to not just look at today. We need to look at 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now at your net worth and your cash flow and what your life will be like. Because if you make decisions today that compromise your financial future, I'm not doing my job.
mm, okay.
If I don't argue against that, okay?
Yep.
If you end up with a house, the other thing is people will look at the budget and say, well, I can swing the mortgage payment. I can do it. I want to keep the house. And I say, okay, great. Can you afford a $30,000 roof if you have a
Mm,
leak? Can you
mm,
replace the HVAC system?
mm,
Do you want to cut the grass on the 2 acres? Are you going to clean the gutters?
mhm.
So there's a lot more to think about than just, well, I can swing the $1,400 mortgage payment.
Right. There's all the maintenance, all the repairs. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So we can't get our minds we can't become too
Hmm.
attached to any one particular asset we've got.
Right. Right. And you know what? This is what we have to keep in mind. Yes, it's your kid's home, but I guarantee you to your children, home is wherever mom is.
Mm, hmm.
If you've been the primary caregiver for your children, home is wherever you are.
Yep. Yep.
It is
Wherever that
not,
nurturing parent is.
it's
Absolutely.
not 123 Main Street. I
Yeah.
guarantee it.
Yeah. Yeah. Wherever they feel loved, safe,
Hmm.
understood, and completely accepted is their home.
Is their
I'm
home.
with you.
Yep. And then
Okay,
the
now what?
final thing is the last thing is position. So we want to think about timing. When I say waiting with intention, it is what needs to happen before I'm ready to go. Okay? Do I need to be earning 35,000? The baby needs to be in kindergarten. I'm waiting for my spouse to retire and start getting that pension payment. I'm waiting for the market to go up. I'm waiting for this child to get married or have their baby. What is it you're waiting for? Let's identify that.
No, that's
Maybe,
good.
right? Maybe if you've got some infidelity or porn addiction or alcoholism or something going on and you're waiting for your spouse to get treatment and get better, you should have benchmarks identified in
Mhm.
terms of what their commitment is and what you're expecting them to do.
So 1 year from now, he's been in treatment for when by the time he's been in treatment a whole year, he should
Hmm.
be at, and how do you answer
Exactly.
that?
Well, it depends, and you should be working with someone that can help you identify that.
Okay.
So,
It's
I work
different
with
for
women,
everyone.
right? I work with women all the time. I coach some groups and work with a group called Betrayal Trauma Recovery and
Ah,
do a little
BTR.
BTR, do a little bit of work with them. And so, one of the things we talk about is it's not checking off a list. It's not he saw a therapist every week. It's
Mm-hmm.
not he went to his 12-step meeting.
Mm-hmm.
We need to see the fruit of that,
Right.
right?
Right.
So it's not that he did it, it's what behavior changes. And for every woman, that's different. So it might be he can now have a conversation with me without calling me a blank,
Mm.
without raising his voice.
Mm-hmm.
I have full access to the family finances now.
Mm.
He's been sober from alcohol for 6 months.
Right.
He's willing to submit to a breathalyzer anytime I ask.
Mm.
What are you looking for?
Right. He
Right?
treats me like a full partner, not,
Mm-hmm.
acting like he's superior.
Exactly, right? We don't have sexual coercion going on in our marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it is, you need to be identifying the fruit that you need to see.
Mm-hmm.
And so timing is part of that. Is I need to see X within X. And if you don't, then that's part of your exit strategy that if you've said you need to see him sober for 90 days within a year and that doesn't happen, then that's the date we're working toward.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so those are the big things. And this is all knowledge, and knowledge is the antidote to fear.
Mm. Amen. Because if you know exactly how many dollars you're going to need to make up in your budget or
Right.
in your financial plan to get
Mm-hmm.
to freedom from someone who's
Right.
treating you badly, um, that can make the difference between feeling trapped or feeling empowered.
Yeah.
So this is great.
Yeah, we don't want you to feel hopeless. Maybe you can't leave today. Maybe the reality is you can't leave today, but it
Hmm.
doesn't mean you can't leave 90 days from now,
Yeah,
6
exactly.
months from
Well,
now.
give us your parting shots and then tell about your book
Okay.
and
So,
your website.
all right, here's my book. It's High Conflict Divorce for Women.
Great.
Because I'm lucky enough, I've been through 2 divorces, one of which was high conflict. So
Okay.
again, it's this safety and protection. I want you
Okay.
to know what you're heading into. Um,
Great.
and you can find out everything you want to know about me at my website, which is not hard to remember because it's my name, Debra Doak, DebraDoak.com.
Spell that again for everyone.
Debra, Debra Doak, Doak.com.
Great. Thank you so much. I
Awesome.
appreciate your time so much. This
Oh,
has
loved
been
it.
eye-opening and really valuable. And wow, thank you for all the tips.
Awesome. I loved being here, and I just hope it helps a couple people.
I'm sure it will. All right. Thank you so much, Deborah.
Thank you. Bye.